events in Syria send worrying signal to dictator in Belarus that in the case of turbulence, a ally you rely on, I mean Russia, will not rescue you.
Now, Belarus, the exiled opposition leader of Belarus, is calling for her countrymen to overthrow the incumbent leader, Alexander Lukashenko. Speaking to Politico, Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya said Lukashenko, who's a Putin acolyte and a proponent of Russia's war in Ukraine, was not invincible. Sviatlana ran for president after her husband, who's a leading opposition candidate, was arrested and jailed during the 2020 election campaign, and she fled afterwards and has been living in Lithuania as an exile ever since then. Welcome now to the programme, Sviatlana.
Hi.
Yeah, good to have you here. Now, we've been given on this programme and across the news in this country and much more widely, we've been giving so much coverage to the fall of Assad in Syria. Is it right that are you taking encouragement, Sviatlana, from that for the prospects, the chances of removing the regime of Lukashenko?
The situation in Syria showed us that dictators are not invincible, and dictatorship usually collapse when nobody expects this. And like it was with Berlin Wall, I don't know, it's also Soviet Union. So we as democratic forces have to be prepared for this. But also events in Syria send worrying signal to dictator in Belarus that in the case of turbulence, ally you rely on, I mean Russia, will not rescue you. So they will accept you, in Russia, give you refuge, but they will not help you in a proper moment. And of course, it showed weakness of Russia in the moment of the attack in Ukraine. But, it's good for us because weakened Putin means weakened Lukashenko. And very soon, I hope we will gain new wind of opportunity to uprise again in Belarus.
Well, let's then talk about your hopes for an uprising at the right moment. When might that be? There are elections, aren't there, Sviatlana, in Belarus in January. I say elections, they are sure to be rigged elections. But it's not your view that that is the time for opponents of the regime to take to the streets and act. Is that correct?
For sure, it's not the correct moment because what's going to happen in Belarus in January has nothing in common with elections. It's a farce, imitation. It's like a ritual, reappointment of Lukashenko by Lukashenko. But the situation now in Belarus, 4 years of repressions, like life like in Gulag. And this so-called election will not change a lot for Belarus because Lukashenko is still, ally to Putin. Belarusian resistance went underground, and this so-called election will not legitimize Lukashenko in the eyes of Belarusian people. And I don't want people to sacrifice in vain.
Right.
Because we have to be prepared for a really proper moment that might be connected to the victory of Ukraine or people's unrest in Belarus or some economic troubles or something else can happen in the world. So like a black swan will appear. So that's why it's not a proper moment. But of course, I ask people to resist securely, safely at this very moment. And of course, we call our democratic partners preliminarily recognize these elections as non-legitimate, as fraud, not to legitimize Lukashenko.
What then would be an appropriate time for Belarusians to act, in your view, Sviatlana?
As I said before, it's the proper moment or moment of opportunity might be connected with the victory of Ukraine. That's why, the victory of Ukrainians are so important for us Belarusians. That's why we advocate so much the world to give this wonderful country and brave Ukrainians everything they need to win this war. Because they are not just fighting for themselves, they are fighting actually for many nations and for Europe as well. So this might be connected with if something happens in Russia,
yes,
or some like natural issues like health of Lukashenko. But mainly is to be prepared for this, to have strong agents of democratic forces, to have unity in democratic movement, and European world or democratic world to be prepared for these changes as well.
Right. Now, look, is it a worry with you? Are you concerned that Putin, having been humiliated by the fall of his ally in Syria, maybe more likely then to defend Lukashenko if he comes under the kind of pressure you want to see?
Belarus, of course, strategically important for Russia because it might be launching a pad for attacks not only on Ukraine but also on our Western actually neighbors. But and that's why Putin is supporting Lukashenko so much. But I have to say that European world, democratic world, should not underestimate the importance of Belarus regarding democratic countries. It's so important not to leave Belarusian people one-to-one with this Russian beast. Yes. We ask you to help us to fight with dictatorship and fight with the Russian imperialism. So helping Belarusians is very small cost that influence Russia a lot because they have to pay Lukashenko more and more just to keep him as ally, to contribute to propaganda. And we as Belarusian people resist to this. Yeah. So what's worrying us that in the case of possible escalation on the battlefields of Ukraine, Belarus again can be used as launching pad for Russia. This is disturbing us, and our partisans inside the country have to be prepared for this.
Tell me, when you look at what is going on in Ukraine, and when you look at the confrontation between NATO and Russia, the political confrontation, of course, NATO is backing Ukraine, although not engaged militarily. The leader of NATO, Mark Rutte, says that NATO's not ready for a long-term confrontation with Russia. Suggests it's time to change to something like a war footing. What do you want from NATO now, in your view, as NATO looks at Russia and this potential threat?
I think that this alliance have to support all those nations who are fighting against Russia, against dictatorship. And we, people in Belarus and Ukraine, we're really brave people, but we can't win this war alone. We need strong allies. And, I think that dictators hear such words that we are not able to win, we are not be able to stay strong, for a long time. It's perceived like weakness. And they challenge NATO, alliance and democracy more and more. And it's emboldened them. So I think that alliance is strong enough to counter dictatorship, to counter Russia, and they have to play it clearly. We will confront you as long as it's necessary to win you.
Now, then what is it that you hope for in the war in Ukraine? What is the outcome you hope to see, realistically hope to see, maybe in this coming year?
I haven't met any person, including Ukrainians, who don't want peace in Ukraine. But it should be a just peace. We can't sacrifice territories of Ukraine just to please dictators. I think that the world, it's not Ukrainian war. It's our global war for freedom. And that's why I really want to see decisiveness among democratic, strong, powerful countries regarding Ukrainians. Give this country everything they need to win the war, to defeat the dictators. And then we all together can celebrate.
Okay. Sviatlana, thank you so much for talking to us this afternoon. That is Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, who is the opposition exiled leader from Belarus.